That's great. That's the commitment. But the person, that my wife married, gosh, when I was 28, I'm a very, very different person now, and she is as well. That's something to be celebrated. But once again, and I talked to her about this, if we're not growing together, then maybe there's a chance we're growing apart. It's not always the case. And sometimes, two people growing, maybe it's this far apart, but sometimes it's like, phew. And I go to a lot of workshops, weekend workshops, those types of things. And oftentimes, it's me and my wife and 100 other participants, and there's like 4 males there. You know what I'm talking about, right? And I don't know why it is that women seem to be more interested in their continued spiritual growth than men, but whatever, it is what it is. I consider it competitive advantage being a male in those spaces. And I'm sitting there, and you're having like the Sunday brunch before everyone disembarks, and it's me and my wife and 6 other women, committed to their spiritual growth. And I'm sitting there going, man, these women are going to go home, and their husband's going to say, "Oh, how was it?" And they're going to say, "Oh, it was fine," because they're not going to be able to put into words what Nassim Harriman or Joe Dispenza or Eckhart Tolle was laying down. When we go through those things, they shift us, they change us as people. And now I'm a slightly different person than I was going into the weekend, but in ways that I probably can't reiterate, in an articulate way, because it's complex stuff. And so some part of me feels sad for that situation. They're going to go home, and their husband unknowingly is slightly growing apart from them, having no idea. And the way they figured out, my wife said it was fine. She said she had a fine time. It was cool. I stayed home and watched football with my friends. We're good.
You mentioned like trying on these different personas and moving them around so much. And the goal was to get friends. How much of that, it seems like it would be really hard to lean into yourself at that point. It feels like, you're trying on these personas. Do I show up as this? Is this? Where along the way did you find, or maybe it was right off the bat and I completely misunderstood, where you had the ability to sink in and start to really feel like you're showing up as yourself in these spaces? Where do the core of you, start to shine in all these spaces?
Well, that's an awesome question, a very astute one, right? Because, that next developmental stage between 8 to 12, 9 to 12, when I'm a constantly transforming set of personas to be able to play in this game, the real inward introspection probably doesn't happen until, deep into an LSD trip at 17 or 18, maybe, or even deeper, being in recovery and doing that hard work to keep it, sustain it, and thrive in it. That's where the real work begins. And that's when I really began to understand myself in a way that just wasn't, I was living so much of my childhood through how what I was doing was bouncing off others and reflecting back to me, right? And call it narcissistic. That word carries a lot of baggage, but if you say like in the real classical term of someone who is bouncing off, their impulse off of another source to review its mirrored effect, to a degree, that's really how I learned how to socialize. And in retrospect, paid a dear price for it, because I didn't understand the heart of service. I didn't understand that life wasn't about my adventure. I didn't get that yet. So much of my early life was, well, what is the most interesting adventure that I can have? Right. I think, if you would have asked me age 16, what's the point of life? I would have said, I got this one. Whoever leaves this planet with the coolest adventure of like an ongoing movie tape of what they've gotten to do, that's it right there. And so my life and the decisions that follow were all very much built upon that premise. And it just shows up in the decision making and all the things, like what's the coolest adventure I can have, which is very, very different to me now saying, how much can I serve? How can I be there for others? How can I make an impact and make other people matter? The second path is a much more fulfilling one, it turns out, and a lot less fleeting and dangerous.
That first path is so fun, though. I can relate a lot to right.
I think I was like the prototype YOLO mindset. I think I was like proto-YOLO.
Proto-YOLO.
I recognize that energy.
Just even like I felt like I had the ability to read immediately what people, and of course it's my perception of what people wanted and or needed, right? But like read the scene immediately as far as like what mask did I need to put on, what part did I need to play in order to,
yeah,
in essence, in order to be accepted, obviously, in order to be loved into that scenario or into that space. And it definitely it caught up fast. It was one of those things that at some point in life, it became very, very difficult to maintain all of that simply because there's a facade there. Like there's the distancing between who I really truly am and who I was pretending to be in order to make friends or meet people or be in relationships and all of those kind of different things. So I can relate a lot to that. What was
exactly right?
Like, I'm so fascinated by the 20s, and you said when it was 28 is when you went into rehab. Like, if you're
35,
35,
married at 28, rehab at 35.
Okay. What, like, I'm so like, I just want to know the whole story about, because I think that's the part that I think is, like our worst parts are oftentimes the parts that crack us open into the best parts, right? So like the darkest parts are usually what lead to the lightest parts. So tell us about that experience, if you don't mind, and share what you're comfortable sharing, of course.
Yeah, listen, the cracks and the breaks are where the light comes in, right?
Yeah,
and
of course.
I could tell you with absolute certainty that rehab was the worst thing that ever happened to me at the time. And I can tell you now that absolutely it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I just didn't understand it at the time. And, my 20s were, that's my 21st birthday. I went to the ER because I jumped off the second story of a Seattle club onto a chandelier. And the chandelier happened to be of like Gothic nature. And so it had these spikes that went through my hand. I let go of the chandelier and I'm still like hanging there. And they had to get like a worker with a ladder to like unhook me like I was a fish. And then we continued to party in the ER. Right. That's a snapshot that pretty much, summarizes what happens when you're living a proto-YOLO, Captain Jack Sparrow is my idol type of lifestyle. So it was certainly fun. I was the front man and, lead guitarist of a band, all those types of like cultural trappings, as if what all that was where it was at. Because at the time, that's what it really felt like, right? Not realizing that there was a toll I was playing on, what's that Stone Temple Pilots line? Too much tripping and my soul's worn thin.
We'll make it out and fall in love tonight.
Thanks for listening to The Steph and Craig Show. There's new episodes of The Steph and Craig Show every week. And if you're resonating with our podcast, please take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with somebody. And be sure to check out some of these clips as well. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you all next week. Expect the best, plan for the greatest.